So recap. God is beauty. God is an artist. God wants to bring us to the beauty of holiness. God is an appreciator. And you can do morality by beauty. You can do morality by moral rules and regulations. But beauty gives you an experience of God. Theology gives you words to talk about the experience of God. There is kind of this difference because you can learn theology and never really have an experience of God. That's really dangerous. Beauty gives you an experience of God. So in the book of Exodus, there's this passage where Moses begs God to let him see God's glory. I love this passage. Moses wants to see God. And so God promises to put Moses in the cleft of a rock and promises that Moses will see God's glory pass by. But Moses will not be able to actually look at God's self, since that would be impossible. So what he can see is where God has been. Now, it's somewhat funny because the word that Moses uses is, or God uses to Moses is, quote unquote, I will let you see my hind parts. Now, you know how they use these bumper stickers with religious slogans on them? I think that'd be a great one for a bumper sticker. You know, I will let you see my hind parts. God. It's an odd phrasing, right? But this is actually a beautiful passage. They might see my hind parts. But this passage, to put it into context, because this is a really great passage, God gives his commandment not to worship idols. And this will be something that distinguishes them from the people of God from pagans. And then Moses wants to see God. So he asks God, let me see how powerful you are, how big you are. But God replies, you can't see myself as a set of boundaries with edges and defined parameters. Moses wants to kind of see God's mass and volume and defined abilities. This is impossible. God is existence itself. That's what the word Yahweh means. I am who am. God is existence itself. So the rabbis have some fascinating reflections on this phrase that I will let you see my hind parts. The rabbis say that when it says hind parts, the quote means that the best you can see is where God's glory has been. Now, that's really amazing. That's the opposite of what idols do. Think about this, like an idol of Zeus. It gives you a picture of what he looks like. He's tall, muscular, with a lot of flowing hair. That gives you an image that you can measure and hold and grasp your arms around. Then you have these different types of God. You have one for thunder, and one for harvest, and one for rainfall. And often they exist only in a certain localized geographical area. That way, you can kind of put the notion of God in a box of where they belong and what they do. Those gods are completely definable. Yahweh is existence itself. God can't be put into a category or measurement or a box. For most things in our life, they're very definable. We have forms and weight and measurements and edges and boundaries, desks and pencils and shirts. They all have a defined purpose and place. This God says he can't be defined. He's existence himself. The word Yahweh, that's what it means. God can't be defined or measured or weighed out. Now, the people have problems with this. The story of the golden calf is really not that they reject God for saving them. They don't reject God for saving them, but it's more that They need a concept of God that they can control and define and measure and kind of wrap their arms around. So the golden calf, they make this image of Yahweh as a way of saying, we're tired of this abstract, undefined, conceptual, what I am, I am existence itself, God. I don't get what that's about. I get what a golden calf is about. What the golden calf is saying is, can we just have the old system where everything is black and white, it's spelled out, this is God and this is not God, this is where God is and this is where God isn't. This "you will see my hind parts" discussion happens after the golden calf. Now, just want to pause here. Does that make sense where what the golden calf is? We do it all the time. We want to have God in some way that we can kind of understand and control. And God says, but I am existence itself. The best you'll see is where I've been. And this part happens in the wilderness. And you can say, why does this epiphany happen in the wilderness? Because in Exodus, the wilderness is a space not controlled by any political or religious system. It can't be co-opted by any organization. The wilderness is a place of undefinedness. So the wilderness is a place where the divine can present itself because you're free from all these outside influences. The wilderness is kind of like that. So think about this. There's this contrast. You can have an experience of God versus kind of a systematic theology. You'll see my hind parts as a way of saying that an experience of God is a far better way than this static idol of a definition of God. Or even, I hate to tell you this, an experience of God is better than a catechetical definition. A defined category of God is what we call systematic theology. So when I went to the seminary, what I studied was systematic theology. I'm not saying that's bad. To discuss about the divine, you have to put it in limited language. And language is limited. What you learn is systematic theology. But a revelation of God's glory is a better glimpse into who God is than a defined systematic theology. A defined theological book is more controllable, but it's not an experience of God. Not always. A systematic theology, in a way, and let me know if you understand this, a systematic theology, in a way, can become a golden calf. It really can. I mean, if you doubt it, think about the Spanish Inquisition. St. Teresa, St. Ignatius, they're persecuted by the Spanish Inquisition, this obsession with orthodoxy. They knew what was orthodox, but they didn't know an experience of God. The mystics, they got an experience of God. So in some ways, systematic theology, if you're not careful, can become a golden calf. Before I go on, does that confuse anybody, offend anybody? I don't want any letters. I won't read them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So theology can sometimes be like pinning down the butterfly. You can pin down the butterfly, but in the process, you kill beauty. You're no longer in relationship with the very beauty that you're studying. So you got to be really careful. And especially like when studying religion, you get this kind of question, what camp are you in? They want to know what camp you're in. Every so often you have a conversation with somebody about religion, and they're really trying to figure out what camp you're in. How did we get to camping so quick? I just want to talk about this love of my life. It's not enough to have a profound experience of the divine. First, you have to tell me what side of the argument you're on. Do you hear Laurel or Yanny? Do you guys know what that is?
Yes. What do you hear?
Yeah, what do you hear? So there's this, you can check it on YouTube. It's this crazy thing where people hear different things. you either hear the name Laurel or Yanny. And it's really funny because our staff, you never heard of that, Carol?
No, Carol never heard that.
Oh, so you go on, you can check it, and it's this odd thing about human perception. We don't perceive everything the same. So you have this recording, and people hear different things. Is the name Laurel or Yanny? Half my office said no, and it's Yanny. It says Yanny, and the other half was no. It's saying Laurel. It's the same one about, and I don't understand it. Yeah, what is the dress? It's blue and gold.
Blue or gold. Yeah, blue and black or gold and white.
Blue and black or gold and white. It's one dress. You didn't see this? But people see different things. How the heck is that possible? It's one physical object.
Some people are right and some are wrong.
She said some people are right and some people are wrong. Anyhow, what was I talking about? Laurel. But think about this. I know this sounds kind of strange. Take about the dress or Laurel and Yanny. Maybe my experience of God is completely true. And maybe your experience of God, Yanny, your Laurel, is completely true as well. They're both true. But I'm just saying, God is the experience of beauty. No, I take that back. God's glory is an experience of beauty. The hind part of God is an experience of beauty. Now, later, if I was getting into apologetics, I would use this argument from Exodus where God says, the best you'll see is my hind part. The best we'll see is an experience of beauty of where God has been. And where has God been? Everywhere in creation. But God itself, completely undefinable. And so, with teenagers, they'll say, well, where's your proof for God? The best we can do is see an experience of God. But if you want God to be measurable and have edges and put in this little box here, that's God is existence. That's a pagan notion of God. Our God is too big for that. The best we can get is experiences of God, experiences of beauty. And an experience of beauty is an experience of God's hind parts. And this sounds strange, but I just tell stories. So one of my friends, he is a bizarre character. I've told you about him before. He's one of my best friends, but he's a marine biologist. And he is just so bizarre. As a kid, just appreciate this. I think God makes us different. As a kid, he loved animals. And his dad, who was this carpenter, laborer, Ken had every animal you can find. He loved animals. He was intrigued by them. And once he comes across this advertisement for buying a monkey, and he rips it out and he hides it. And his dad was really compliant on giving him all these animals. And his dad finds the monkey and says, "You are not buying a monkey!" Well, he becomes this marine biologist. And he's such a, he's a weird character in many ways. And in his younger days, he used to wrestle alligators. So I know, he's a bizarre character. He has no social graces whatsoever. No, I'm serious. He really does. Something's wrong. His social graces are a little off. And he flew into Boise to visit me once, and I see him at the airport, and his jeans are just rolled up. And I said, let me guess, you walked into a store, you didn't have the patience to try on the jeans, so you just grabbed whatever one you could. And he just laughs, and he just puts a belt around it. I'm not wasting my time with all this. So he's a bizarre character. But he was, his dad technically was Catholic, but his mother was she was Swiss, and she was an atheist. And because his father was briefly married before he couldn't get married into the Catholic Church, that ticked him off. He wanted nothing to do with the Catholic Church. His mother was an atheist, so Ken was raised as an atheist. And he tells this story where he's looking through this microscope at a cell, and he's struck at just how beautiful the cell is. And that you could have a dead cell or you can have a living cell. And he said he was just struck at the beauty of life itself. And he said, I knew there had to be a God. So at that point, in an instant, he comes to believe in God. He didn't come to God through a catechetical book. He came through an experience of beauty and life. And so Ken came to believe in God because of life itself. And it led to a morality. Ken said, if there is something sacred about life, then I've got to care for it. So Ken would buy shoes for the homeless. That would be him. He would follow a logical, he's kind of a scientist in a way. He'd follow something really logical. Ken's morality is really based on you have to care for life. And even drug-addicted human beings need care. There's this other guy named Frank Wilczek. He's a Nobel physicist. Before I stop that, Ken's view of beauty, it's not mine. Does that make any sense? But it is a sense of beauty. And once he wanted me to go to this exhibit on viruses. I actually came to understand what he meant. I'm thinking, there's no way in hell. So anyhow, we go to this exhibit on viruses, and what they did is that they blew up viruses as big as this door, a picture of a virus, and then they had that black light on them, so it gave them a three-dimensional. And here's the odd part. Have you ever seen a virus? They are incredibly beautiful. They are beautiful works of art. I know their effects are horrific on us, but in themselves, they really are these geometric, beautiful, very colorful things. And so Ken we're going through the viruses, and he said, I see this as beautiful. And in a way, it really was. He sees life and animals and biology as beautiful. It led him to this morality of beauty. Ken Wilczek, he's a Nobel physicist. He sees beauty as a compass for truth. That's a really odd thought for somebody who's a physicist. And he writes his book, and the book is called A Beautiful Question, Finding Nature's Deep Design. And the equation, he writes this, he's noted for being this famous physicist, and I don't understand any of that. But he said once he's writing this equation, and I like this line where he says, the equation wrote itself because it was beautiful. And now, I don't see math that way, but he was so taken up with the beauty of its thought, he said the equation just started to write itself, and he wins this Nobel Prize. Einstein believes that human beings were these observers of this majestic, pre-existent harmony. And he often spoke about observing God's logic. Newton, here's a line from Newton. Wilczek writes this on his book on A Beautiful Question. Newton writes, I know not how I appear to the world. I know not how I appear to the world, but to myself I appear as a boy on a beach who came upon some beautiful pebbles, as a great ocean of the unknown lies before me. Isn't that a great... with humility and beauty, all life is an experience... with humility, beauty is an experience of life. Sciences. So, when I say beauty, I just don't mean in the sense of artists. I put it this way. God is beautiful, and God made creation. And creation is this much beauty. Artwork is just a tiny subset of this incredible beauty that is mathematical equations and cells and viruses. And a small sliver of that is artwork we produce. But even Pope Francis said, an artist is an apostle for beauty who helps others live. We're supposed to create beauty in the world. Everybody in the church is not an artist, but we can be disciples of beauty, disciple means one who learns from beauty. Ken came to God through beauty, not catechism. A physicist comes to God through beauty, not catechism. Like for Ken, trying to teach him about God in catechetical, philosophical language wouldn't work for him. It's a bridge too far. But rooted in the science of evidence and beauty, he can be struck by it. Now, I'm not saying everybody can be struck by it, but he can. Or not just science, but how about this? We would say story, art. Story like storytelling, literature. The power of story is an experience of God's hind part. The power of story, really, it gives us an experience of beauty. And so, think about this. Democracy was born at the same time and place as theater was. At Greece was born the idea that the government should give consent. That power flows from the consent of the people up rather than power flowing down from the king to the people. That's a revolutionary idea. But it also came at the same time that theater is invented. Theater was invented by this name named Thespius. So an actor is called a thespian. And Thespius discovered that people pay more attention to a dialogue rather than a monologue. That you can learn more if you turn a lecture 90 degrees to facing a person. Then you have a dialogue. People are drawn into a dialogue and a story rather than having to agree whole cloth to everything in a lecture. They can be moved with agreeing with all or part of a story or a dialogue. And the idea is that you could have two opposing opinions, and in the conflict of opinions, that's where truth is born. Truth is not the possession of a singular person, but it's born out of this interaction. Democracy believes in conflict and storytelling, while an autocrat believes that only he has the right answers. So theater asks you to sit back and listen. I take that back. Theater does not ask you to sit back and listen. It asks you to lean forward and imagine my point of view. And then it switches position. And then you have to imagine the point of view from somebody else. And that's asking for empathy. Theater and movies and plays and novels, they're an experience of beauty. And the beauty is seeing God's hind part. Beauty is not this outline definition of what God is and isn't. Beauty is an experience of God. It comes in many forms. And so there is this moral conclusion to beauty. The same way if you listen to a great play or read a book, it changes your opinion. It leads to some moral consequences. Ken, he sees the beauty of a cell, and it leads to moral consequences. So my point being is that morality can be done by beauty. Think about the fashion model, where in the beauty industry it says morality promotes a lie that ruins people's lives. So she'd say the beauty of the fashion industry is a lie. It leads to poor morals. It is a form of ugliness. Does that make sense? And ugliness leads to immorality. Ken, the physicist, he's led to moral action. A story, a dialogue, it can move people to a moral conviction better than a theological lecture. Does that make sense? So that's, when you say the theology of beauty, I mean an experience of God, of seeing God's hind parts. So just, I've gone a half an hour, so I kind of want to take a small break. And just table discussion. How about this? At the table discussion, ask yourself, or discuss among yourself, where did you see an experience of beauty? There was an experience of God's hind parts that led to a moral conviction. Does that make sense? Not, well, right now, go ahead. Talk among yourselves and then we'll share after I eat a donut.
I think I can't tell, but every time I see a picture from space, when they go up in space and they see the Earth, it gets me. I don't know if that brings back it reminds me how small we are. There's such a big piece of it. I don't know if that's answering the question. From their space, and it gets me for from that perspective. Yes. Yeah, from the winter to the spring. Yeah. Right. Yeah, when I was with labor and delivery, every time I did a birth of baby, with a family, I would get teary every time. As a nurse, it's like, come on, kids, I need delivery to be done. I cried every time and say, you got 2 minutes. Sorry, even my
You're what? A blonde lady chewed me out, so just worried. So why don't we start? Anybody want to share of their experience of beauty that led them to morality? Oh, okay. Miss Carol Meadows, people are volunteering you.
I was just saying, when we give birth to a child, whether we're the woman or the father, we automatically see beauty in that child, no matter what it looks like. And through that glimpse of that baby, that beauty of that baby, we automatically see God at work. Okay, the moral responsibility that comes in. Now I have to bring this child up to recognize God, to be righteous, to be holy, moral. So
that's a good story. Do you know who else would? Yeah, there's that famous story of Dorothy Day. And Dorothy Day, she was a avowed atheist, right? Communist and atheist. And she gets pregnant, and her significant other insists on an abortion. She gets one. She gets pregnant again, but this time decides to keep the baby, and he leaves her. But she says, when she gave birth, she said, most people should come to God out of tragedy. She says, I came to God out of joy. When they put her daughter in her arms, she said she felt such joy that she knew that there was a God. Like I think that's kind of amazing that that's an example of beauty leading to kind of this moral conviction, changed her world in an instant. So, just backs up. Anybody else? How about, that table right there. How about that table right
there? Go for it. I didn't have any contribution.
I'm just trying to harass you. Yeah, go ahead.
So I came to Holy Apostles for the first time with Gary and Sue. They invited me for turkey bingo 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We're probably undecided about that. And Gary asked Father Len if he would give me a tour of the church. And so he said sure. So we walked down and we walked in the church. And one of the best ways I can describe this is, I'm sure you've all seen the commercials for the York peppermint patties when they snap them open and your hair blows back. When we walked in the church, that's the feeling that I got. Was everything that was heavy and negative in me was left at the door, just wiped clean. And I know Father doesn't like crying, but I was like, I'm really sorry. Because the feeling that I felt was so beautiful and so pure. And it's a feeling that I've never felt before in my life. And what I got from that was I needed to learn from that experience. I needed to accept that and learn and be worthy and embrace that experience. So
that's good. Okay, I like that. That is nice. I also like the humility that goes with that. This response of humility that I just got to be worthy of this. And in a way, that leads me to my second part. Just classical theology from St. Augustine. So you know St. Augustine's life, right? Wild, women ruined his life. He was very promiscuous. He was brilliant. He was an intellectual brilliant. But he always kind of avoided God. And later in life, he has this conversion, right? So this is from his biography. I'm just going to read it because I think it's so amazing. But you have to understand, beauty was one of the definitions of the divine. So he says, late have I loved you, beauty ever ancient and ever new. Late have I loved you. Lo, you were within, but I was outside, seeking there for you. And upon shapely things you have made, I rushed headlong. You were within, but I was not with you. They held me back far from you. Those things which would have had no being, were they not in you? You called, you shouted, you broke through my deafness. You flared, you blazed, banished my blindness. You lavished your fragrance. I gasp, and now I pant for you. I tasted you, and I hunger and thirst. You touched me, and I burned for your peace. But I love how, like, his conversion story starts out with love. Well, with beauty. But in classical Greek theology, you have Plato's cave. And if you don't know what Plato's cave is, Plato's theory of this is that we're all like in this cave. Does that make sense? We live in this cave. And what we see of the world, it's like we're all chained to one wall, and where the cave entrance is, the light comes in. But we don't really see the light itself. We see the light reflected on the cave wall. So as shadows move back and forth, let's say animals outside, you can see shadows. Does that make sense? So Plato's idea is that what we can experience in the world is only a small fragment, but there's a greater world outside our world. Does that make sense? And that would be beauty. And so he said, in Plato's cave is, imagine somebody breaking from the chains of the wall in the cave, and they walk outside into the light, and they see the full light with all the colors. That would be the truth. And in some ways, that is, I love near-death experiences. And by the way, Plato's cave, it happened because of this Armenian soldier who had a near-death experience. And it gets him thinking, well, maybe all of life is like that. This Armenian soldier, this is pre-Christian, he has this near-death experience. You guys know what that is, right? Mm-hmm. But in the near-death experiences, he sees light and color for the first time. Well, light is here and color is here, but he would say, no, it's just a reflection. So Plato makes that part of his cave, but I am kind of struck how many times people have had near-death experiences, and what they see is beauty. It's not that the world is not beautiful, but all we see is the hind part. In heaven, we can see beauty itself. And, I mean, I've talked about many near-death experiences, but there's this girl in Caldwell, she's a teenage girl, and it's kind of a horrible death, because she's getting ready for a prom, and her mother made her the dress. And she's getting ready for the prom, and the first hint that something was wrong is that the collar no longer fit around her neck, but her mother measured it right. then they realized she had this strange disease. And anyhow, she dies several months later, but her mother's there, and before she dies, she's lying in the bed, and she's unconscious, and then she wakes up, and she says, "Mom," she says, "do you hear it? It's so beautiful." And then she reached out her hand and said, "They're here." Well, I think that's a great example of the communion of saints, but it's also like, it's so beautiful. I think heaven is this place of beauty, and we get small reflections and glimpses of it here on earth. That's Plato's cave. That's Augustine idea, that when we die, we will see light and know light for the first time. Isn't that a strange phrase that we say? That we will know light, see light and know light for the first time. We'd say, well, everything in the earth is just a small reflection of the beauty of heaven. And so you have various saints, Augustine, other ones, who kind of, that's their theology of beauty. And one very famous one is St. Hildegard. She was also, like Augustine, kind of this genius of her time period in science and math and especially music. And she had this developed idea of the theology of beauty based on music. And she says there's musica mundana, which is the music of the universe. That's a strange concept. Musical humana and musical instruments. Musical mundana is the universe as a whole sings. That's a strange concept, but in her mysticism, everything in life is bringing forth kind of this song. Music was kind of her issue, that everything brings forth this deep harmony, and the whole world, the whole cosmos, is like this orchestra of parts, and every part of humanity is singing a song to God. We just can't always hear it. It's only inaudible to everybody but the mystics. So she'd say the whole universe is this beautiful song. And musica humana is, through introspection, we can hear the song within us. That when our mind and our heart is truly aligned, and this is not my theology, it's more hers, that music resonates in our attitude towards others and life, and it reminds us of this deeper music that God is playing. That the music is our character, it helps calm us down and express our passions. She'd also say, well, the same way our lives are supposed to create this beautiful music, so there's also bad music out there. And bad music, it controls your emotions to anger and hatred. And like, I know that sounds kind of strange, but I do find that kind of true. Like, I think some music is, fun or uplifting or somber or reflective. And other music, I think, just increases your anger and your not somberness, but desperation. And so anyhow, her theology of music, her theology of beauty is that, no, this music is being played. It's just that sometimes we can't hear it. And we produce music. And the question is, do we produce good music or bad music? And in her time period, this one bishop had a ban on music. And so St. Hildegard gets into the argument with her bishop that you can't ban music. And she appeals his decision, and she says music was part of the original state in the Garden of Eden. And when the devil hears this music, he flees. He's so frightened of it because he is the opposite of beauty. And remember, Lucifer, his name was light bearer. Lucifer was supposed to be the most beautiful, but when he sins, he's the most ugly. And beauty frightens Satan. Anyhow, so she puts forth the first morality play. And in the morality play, I just think it's kind of funny. Everybody in the play, it's a musical production. Everybody sings except for the devil. And the devil, in her, just barks orders. Isn't that kind of funny? Like, the one person who can't sing is the devil. All he can do is bark orders around. And she would say virtues are an expression of this musical beauty. I don't see it, but I actually see beauty easier in viruses. But I do love it. Or St. Francis. St. Francis, the Canticle of Creation. It's really this homage to beauty. He just sees beauty in all the parts of creation: water, fire, animals. Francis's life was transformed by love and beauty, and in his theology, beauty is everywhere. So St. Bonaventure wrote of Francis, aroused by all things to the love of God, he rejoices in the works of the Lord's hands. In beautiful things he discerned beauty itself. Isn't that a great homage? But his beauty is much different than mine. Does that his is of animals and creation and water. And in his theology, poverty is a virtue because it helps you see true beauty. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me for a long time, how poverty helps you see beauty. But think about the Catholic supermodel, who when she's parading down, she had a lot of artistic fashion, but it was really a sense of ugliness because you were seeking the wrong things. Does that make sense? Empty of it, she can find true beauty. There's this poet, Herbert, from World War II. He was this poet who said, somebody asked the question, after Auschwitz, how can anybody write poetry ever again? And his reply was, how can we not? When you see true ugliness, such as under Nazism, your resistance, you should resist. He was jailed, he went to the concentration camps, but the greatest act of rebellion against oppression is pouring forth beauty. And even Dostoevsky's great line, in the end, beauty will save us. Dostoevsky was this writer. And it's a popular quote. Anybody else ever hear that quote, in the end, beauty will save us? Nobody? Oh. Okay, 2 people. Anyhow, how will beauty save us? Well, he writes about this in the novel The Idiot, but in the main character is this prince, who's this epileptic but innocent and naive, and out of his mouth comes this clear vision of beauty. And the problem is, he's right, that he's right in this sense. With theology, let's say systematic theology, you can argue theology, but you can also misuse the Bible. You can make the Bible support any ignorance you want to. You just have to misquote it or say part of it. You can do the same thing with Orthodox theology. You just emphasize it the wrong way. But beauty is an experience of God. So when Dostoevsky writes, in the end, beauty will save us, because you can't manipulate it. Does that mean you can falsify it in the sense of creating ugliness? But here's the other part. Beauty helps us recognize the lie. And Virginia Woolf, you know who Virginia Woolf is? She's the author. Virginia Woolf, there's this great story prior to World War II, where Virginia Woolf's husband is a poet and a writer, and this is the build-up to the whole thing. And his line is that beauty helps us recognize the lie. And he's doing gardening, he loved gardening, and Virginia Woolf comes out and says, Hitler's on the radio, do you want to hear what he's have to say? And he says, I can hear the ugliness from here. If you really train yourself for beauty, you can recognize the lie. And ugliness and a lie is the same thing. So going back to this ancient mystic, the opposite of beauty is a lie. And we should be open to the theology of beauty because it helps us recognize the lie. And yes, you can do morality by beauty. It's just, it's harder because the experience you have to simply be open to. But the role of the church, think about this. The role of the church, I teach catechism all the time, St. Ignatius to RRE, but the whole role of the church in one way is one of our roles, it should be to help get people open to beauty. or at least appreciate beauty. So let's say, like my friend Ken, we should help other people recognize, to be open to beauty. We can't, like, I'm not going to articulate this well, but the world of the church is that, let's say you see beauty in a cell, we should honor that. Does that make sense? Whether it's a physicist, but if Ken has this revelation of God through seeing beauty in a cell, or a physicist in this equation, the church, I think, should harness that as, yes, that is a conversion experience. First reaction should not be throwing catechism at people. Does that make sense? You have to first encourage them to have, well, you do throw catechism at children, but that just gives them the words so that they can appreciate beauty. Does that make sense? Leads them. So that's my theology of beauty. So questions, objections? It's a little bit like, I like the summertime ones because they're fun. Systematic theology, to be honest, is a lot easier. But all you can be is open to beauty. You can't really cause